I wrote a joint paper basically on the convergence of BIM and AI with its transformational potential for the QS, but why the lack of engagement with the QS. Now, I wrote a similar paper maybe about 8 or 10 years ago on, again, BIM and why were the QSs not getting involved in BIM. So this is really written from a very high level, basically, in a nutshell. And what I discovered was there is very, very, very little information out there. If you do a literary review, there's very, very little on it, and it tends to be on emerging technologies, so it would be like on IoTs, it could be on a whole lot of different things, but there's nothing on it from BIM from the point of view of a quantity surveyor. There's only very few papers, which was amazing, and when I read them I realised why, because this is an emerging technology and we're really at the cusp of it, and we are quantity surveyors, and by our very nature we are risk adverse. So this is an area that's ripe for a huge amount of research. It's a whole, there's vast areas we could do research in this, and there is significant gaps, and that became clear from when I did the literary review. And at the moment, what's happening is because of the DeepSeek, the Chinese, and everything is AI, and you'll see quite a lot of white papers. You'll also see quite a lot of industry reviews on, again, commentary papers on AI, but very few actually on quantity surveying. So there's a whole number of reasons why we're risk adverse. We're in the same position as we would have been for BIM 10 years ago. So basically I defined what it is, but the main reasons that we are not into AI is because of practical, professional, psychological factors, and there's a huge number of those. And the paper basically was to set out to address on a high level what is the problem, to demystify AI, because recently a colleague of mine says, okay, when we have AI, we're done for. But then I heard 10 years ago when BIM came out, okay, it'll automate everything, quantity surveyors are gone. But the thing about BIM is BIM can only ever produce about maximum 79% of quantities that are required for a bill of quantities. Not everything is modelled, and people don't realise that. So there's no little red button you can push and you'll get out your bill of quantities. And it'll be the same with AI. And again, I've just briefly described the three different types of AI, and the ones we are mostly concerned with is the with just simple AI in machine learning. The rest is down the line, way down the line, for a better word. Oh God, I've done it again. So these are generally the benefits of what you're going to get. These, it optimizes resource allocation. It'll be useful for life cycle assessment, life cycle costing, carbon counting, and risk management, creation of bills of materials, which are very important for doing carbon counting. And again, it's enhanced transparency. There's a huge amount of things it does. And again, it'll be very useful for automating repetitive tasks. But then BIM does that. BIM automates repetitive tasks at the end of the day. So the next one is, what are the limitations? Now, these are the serious things. Once quantity surveyors understand what AI cannot do, it then exposes its limitations, and you do really need to expose the limitations. And there is huge fear out there. They're afraid that once, as said, AI comes into being, we won't have any jobs. But the reality is, we will be able to add very high level value, and what's more, we'll end up with our own AI, robotic QS chat GPTs, for want of a better word, and similar versions of those. So basically what I did is I set out to see why are the problems, and I'm a quantity surveyor, chartered quantity surveyor for well over 35 years. So I know I've gone from the point of where we were using, paper methods to not intelligent methods, but using computers, now to a point where we're getting to the intelligent, using intelligent methods. And again, here's the reasons why. Once you expose the limitations, as I said, you will lose the fear. And that's a huge thing, because it's a digitalization. It's just a form of digitalization. It is only just algorithms. It is only, it's only ever as good as the input of data. And the thing with AI and BIM and anything else for that matter, rubbish in, rubbish out. There's always going to be, so it's only ever as good as how the robot or the machine is fed. If it's fed rubbish, you get rubbish. You get what you put in, basically. And it'll never replace humans, because humans make AI work. They're the ones who write the codes. They operate it, they repair it, they do all the work. And AI lacks emotional intelligence. And that's very important further down the line. You'll see that. That's what makes us humans humans. But AI for quantity surveyors is going to be brilliant. I can't wait to get one. when I really can't, because it's such a short of quantity surveyors. But I have to bear in mind the problems that it comes with, and it comes with huge problems. And it doesn't have soft skills, and it has no physical form. It still needs fact checking, because I mean, you see the deep fakes out there. Who fact checks those? And again, it's whatever you feed it, you get out. Is it right? That's a good question. It's inflexible. It's automated. It does whatever it is programmed to do, and it'll continually do it. And again, it doesn't have any, as I said, physical agility or that a human has. It has no moral compass, and that's serious. It's not sensitive to the needs of others. It doesn't care. It's just a machine. It cannot match human creativity, because it's impossible for it to be as creative. Now, I know there is generative design, and I know we have robotic bricklayers, and I know we've all of those types of things. And if you can get a huge amount of information out in a very short time. You give it the parameters and say, oh, give me 10 designs for this. It'll do it. But it doesn't have the creativity. And the other problem is it doesn't understand causation. It doesn't understand why it's spewing out stuff, but doesn't understand what it's about and what does it really mean, or is it right, or is it wrong? And again, it can't complement humans. The purpose of it is to help us, but not replace us. But it cannot replace us. And again, one of the reasons I find is there's an unclear business value, because the AI applications that are out there currently are mostly for general construction management. They're not QS-specific workflows. Now, I would use Qubit, but Qubit down the line it's an intelligent BIM software, or QS software. But come Q1 of 2026, they will have an AI feature on the ribbons. There'll be an actual AI feature on the ribbons. And what that is, that's the first part of a series of beta testing they're doing, and they'll be reducing or releasing it at later levels. So the software, for example, Qubit down the line, will have AI in it. It already has AI in it anyway, to a point that people don't even realise they're using it. But this will have a specific AI feature bit. And again, there's lack of trust in AI outputs, and I can understand that, because there's lack of transparency. You don't know, like it's for us, for people, quantity surveyors, you're making major decisions. There's a lot of money involved, and you can't trust a machine to throw out stuff and go, is that right? You just can't. It's not professional. Then there's, of course, the other problem is, and it's been touched on time and time again, is the low digital and data literacy, again. And that, QS has traditionally lacked skills, but now, because of when coming out of colleges these days, they do have literary skills, but we're still at the cusp of an industry that's just evolving. And again, there's a resistance to change, together with a generational divide, and you will find digital natives are much more inclined to engage in stuff, whereas older, more senior surveyors know the risks and know what it's going to cost them. And again, the barriers. I've looked at barriers, and of course bias and discrimination is a big one, because it has no emotional intelligence. It doesn't possess, it doesn't know. And again, problem also for QS companies is dependence on technology. When it fails, what happens? Then you will end up with digital natives who don't know how to go back to first standards or go back to basics. So they're worried about that there'll be problems. And then implementation barriers, again, for smaller QSs. Now, the bigger ones is the ethical and moral concerns. There's a huge amount of those. And again, there's fairness, transparency, accountability, human rights, regulations, credibility, data ownership, GDPR, IP, you name it. And it comes with legal risks. The biggest problem is legal risks. IT problems, infringement, huge challenges there. Patents, who owns what. And again, we have a situation where we have poor quality fragmented data. Because QSs wouldn't normally, back in the past, wouldn't have, they have silos basically. We have loads of silos. So we do not have that huge amount of, data lakes that we need for all this kind of stuff. Then you have, again, it can have unpredictable and unforeseen consequences. And obviously autonomous vehicles is just a very simple one to explain that. And it also comes with, now this was mentioned earlier by Sean, when he was saying about vulnerable to data breaches. It is. The more complex the AI system, the more difficult it is to secure. And that's an issue. And we are operating in a very, increasingly interconnected world. And again, professional liability and risk. Now, there's a problem for you. As quantity surveyors, we need to think about that. And we are cautious as well, because we're cautious because if we make errors in costing and we say something is either viable or it's not viable, then there is consequences for our PI insurances, and that comes into play. Then it comes at a cost, and again, for smaller SME practices, this is an issue for them. So then we get is more on the professional on professional indemnity insurance. See, the problem is contract law, PI insurance, and all of those have not come up with AI. There is no standards, there is no clauses, there is nothing out there. It's a whole unclear area, basically, in a nutshell. Then we have long-term adverse effects. It's like kids nowadays, they're stuck in, they're stuck in phones and all that sort of stuff. There is the lack of human interaction, and we need human interaction. And again, the carbon footprint is another problem, because again, we're ahead of it. We have to be aware of training. You see, to get a good AI GPT model, QS model, we have to train it, and we need to have large quantities of structured, reliable data to do it, and it needs to be good data. But that's another thing. So we need good governance as well, tighter regulation, and this requires updating, and again, lack of standardisation and regulation, and this is fairly boring stuff unless you're going to see somewhere. But lack of standardisation is a huge thing. Now, further on, I've put in a list of new, where there is some information on standardisation. But again, the problem is at the moment, for example, we rely on our QS bodies such as the RICS. Now, they have not published any standalone AI guidelines. They have recently published something which it takes into consideration the broader ethical and professional standards, but it's a broader thing. So the moment there's some out there from the AIQS, which is the Canadians, and the ICEC, but there isn't in the whole professional cross. There is no standardised, agreed, and that's an issue as well. Then we have, what do we need to put into place? And again, it's the usual training, upskilling, embedding data and digital literacy and AI concepts in QS education. Now, colleges are taking this on board, and they're trying to do as much as they can with BIM and all, and again with ICMS and stuff like that. Now, what we need is transparent AI tools, because without transparency, you get an answer, but how do you know that's right or not? You don't. So you need to have explainable AI models that QSs can interrogate and validate. There will always be a need for QSs to interrogate and validate, because the models can't do it. And then we need professional bodies such as the RICS, AIQS, SCSI, and all these others to have clear frameworks for ethical and responsible uses of AI. And again, we need to get people to use it, we need to encourage small-scale pilot trial projects, emphasise augmentation, which is not replacement. At one stage, people thought AI, QS gone, robot in, but no, we will end up with a human AI collaboration, and that's where we need to be going. So AI handles the data, the simple routine task, whereas QSs handle the interpretation and judgment. So there is a number of papers, academic out there, that combine the role of QS with, there's only a very small number out there, with AI or machine learning. And machine learning is something we need to be learning a lot more of it, but there's a huge gap out there. So the future of the QS in using AI, and I'm all for it, but beware of all the dangers that come with it. And we are one of the lucky few, because I say we're lucky because AI is going to enhance our value, it's going to enhance our skills, it's going to allow us to do things we could never do before. We can optioneer and do things we could never do before. So it's going to be huge. And the use of AI with BIM is going to be even better. But what I didn't say at the time when I was doing this was ICMS mandate came out in the 1st of January 2024. And that's a global standard. And what that does, it standardises all of the built infrastructure across the whole of not just Europe, but across the world. And that, through the use of ICMS, which is codified and all the rest of it, and Sean mentioned earlier about ARM5. Well, ARM5 is brought into play, and ARM5 actually takes into consideration ICMS. And it takes into consideration modern methods of construction, and it's completely coded. So the use of ICMS with ARM5, we're in an area we've never been in before. It's just everything is coded. We can, But remember, even when we go into the models, only maximum 79% can be used to produce a bill of quantities, because a lot of it is not in the models and can't be in the models. There's prelims and there's other areas that need to be priced, but they're not in the models. So you need to realise that it's not just push a button and we'll get it out. So what I've done is here I've put out, for anyone who's interested, I don't know that anybody is, we have a note of standards, because I do know that there are professional quantity surveyors out there using AI with discretion. But here's, if you're going to use it, and the government is very much in favour of it, here's where you go. And this is an area where QSs can get involved, and there's a lot of really good stuff out there. There's a lot of research that's needed. And that's it. Thank you.